You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another review. So I finally finished Bojack Horseman, and I'm finally ready to talk about the series as a whole. In the past, I did a review of Bojack Horseman Season 4, and then after that, I kind of stopped watching with Season 5. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But my friend really wanted me to finish the series, so me and him watched it together. We watched through Season 5 over a period of time, and then we watched through Season 6. And to help balance it out, I was showing him Moral Oral, and there will be a video coming out on Moral Oral again later this week, most likely. So look forward to that. But on to Bojack Horseman, right? When the show came out, I started watching it after Season 2 had come out, and we were waiting for Season 3. I remember I binged the first 2 seasons. The first season I at first wasn't getting why it was so popular, because for the first few episodes it just kind of felt like anthropomorphic horse Family Guy. But then when they started to get to the dramatic elements is when I started to actually get into the show. I do really like dramedies, and good ones are few and far between. Moral Oral is my favorite. But this, at the time, was starting to compete with it. Watching the first 2 seasons, I got really into the show. I started to really like Bojack, how fucked up and, sad his life was, and how depressed of a character he was, how he was an asshole who was trying to get better, but couldn't get over himself to do it. He kept making shitty decisions and doing shitty things to all the people around him, and that was just a fascinating show. The actual humor in the show was very hit or miss. Todd was pretty funny. I actually really liked Todd for the first, 2 or 3 seasons. I don't really care for him anymore, and I'll get into that a little bit more later, too. But the humor was very hit or miss, right? A lot of the jokes were just like, oh, look, it's a celebrity, but they're an animal. See, it's funny. Or they'd have, a lot of wordplay, where they just have a lot of alliteration, or they'd have a lot of similar-sounding words and rhyming and stuff like that. They do a lot of stuff like that. But after a while, it does get a little tiresome, because they just kind of keep doing it. Sometimes it can be kind of charming, but it does go on a lot. Then, of course, there's the ongoing joke of Holly Woo, after Bojack steals the D from the Hollywood sign, and they call it Holly Woo. And then they change it to Holly Woob at the end of the series, so there's that. But it did have a cast of characters that, during the first 3 seasons, I was really interested in. I really liked Bojack's interactions with Sarah Lynn, and her big arc during Season 3 that ultimately culminated in her death because of Bojack's actions, although, to say that it was completely because of his actions, I don't think is entirely true. She still had choice. And that is one thing that does get on my nerves a bit, is they try to pretend that doesn't exist, her choice in the matter. But again, we'll get into that a little more later. Season 1 through 3, I ultimately loved the show. Season 3 ended in a super dramatic way. It was very sad, and I thought the show was just going to keep getting better and better. Then Season 4 happened. Now, Season 4 had the subplot with Bojack's mom dying and having all the brain problems, and that was really good. I liked all that stuff. But it also had Hollyhock, who thought she was Bojack's daughter, but then later found out she was his half-sister. I didn't really care about that. It was fine. She wasn't all that great. So it was kind of boring for me with Season 4. Again, not the worst thing in the world, but it was still okay. They also started to shoehorn in some, current events social commentary. It's totally possible that I just wasn't as aware through the first 3 seasons, and maybe they had it back then too. But I definitely feel like Season 4 is when they started to get kind of obnoxious with it. And then Season 5, they got even more obnoxious with it. But with Season 4, they had all this stuff about fracking, and if women should carry guns, which women should carry guns, everyone should carry guns. I'll just say that right there. That's my thought. Everyone should have guns. As far as fracking, I think it was very one-sided, and they didn't make a good point, because they were talking and acting like it's this horrible, horrible thing, when it's much of the world depends on it, and it would make us much more energy independent, so we wouldn't have to rely on foreign oil. So the show wasn't very fair on that, and that started to annoy me too, and also, at the time, I was just kind of oh, I hate politics, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm much more willing to talk about politics and think about politics and stuff like that. But even then, Bojack Horseman doesn't do the social commentary very well, and it's kind of leftist, and I don't care for that. And especially in Seasons 5 and 6. After finishing Season 4, I waited for Season 5 hoping it would be better. When I started Season 5, I wasn't super into it. There was a dumb plot about Princess Carolyn wanting to get a baby. I didn't really care about that. Season 4 had this really annoying plot about Todd being asexual, which just isn't a thing. If you think you're quote-unquote asexual, you're either A, lying and trying to be special, or B, you have some sort of deficiency. That's all it comes down to. And that really pissed me off, because it was annoying and trying to act like this is a thing. And that's when I started to notice the show really does have a lot of woke stuff in it. Because there's that, Hollyhock has like 8 dads. They throw in like little jabs here and there, the anti-fracking stuff, obviously. But in season 5, it got really annoying. They did the episode Bojack the Feminist, which is when I originally stopped watching it. Now, granted, the episode itself was actually a commentary on male feminists, and often them being terrible people who pretend to be feminists because they actually treat women like shit. And that was mildly amusing, but it was still kind of annoying, and it did feel a little preachy, too. They also had Diane, who is a character I just cannot stand. Starting with the ending of Season 3, where she divorces Mr. Peanut Butter. Or maybe it was Season 4, I don't remember. Whenever she divorced Mr. Peanut Butter, yeah, I think it was Season 4 that she divorced him. And then in Season 5, she goes to Vietnam to quote-unquote find herself. And it's like, I'm sorry, bitch, I cannot sympathize with you. You broke up with a man who gave you the thing you wanted the most in the world because he gave you the thing you wanted the most in the world. Fuck you. And she's also really preachy and obnoxious, and, you know, she's a feminist, so fair enough, but, like, it got to be really annoying. Like, I didn't necessarily despise her in the first season, I found the feminism kind of obnoxious, but, like, I still liked her as a character, but she started to piss me off more and more as the series went on. The show, like, really tries to make you sympathize with her, because they make her, like, really depressed in Season 5, and she starts taking all these antidepressants and getting fat, and it's like, I'm sorry, I don't sympathize with her. All of her problems are caused by herself. You expect me to sympathize with her, but you don't expect me to sympathize with Bojack. You know what I mean? Like, Bojack himself, most of his problems are caused by himself. But he's much more of an interesting character, and I like him a hell of a lot more. By the end of the show, him and Mr. Peanut Butter were like the only 2 characters that I even remotely liked. I also had this really dumb subplot where Mr. Peanut Butter was getting cucked because he cheated on his fiancée, so to get back, they let her sleep around, but then she wanted to build up an emotional connection, because that was the big part of the betrayal with Mr. Peanut Butter, because he had the connection to Diane, who's the one he cheated on Pickles with. He just starts letting her fuck a bunch of guys, and I'm like, this is bad. This is pathetic. Then there was, like, this stuff about Todd becoming, like, the president of a company. That was kind of stupid. Todd's antics became less and less charming with each series, and it just became kind of annoying to me. Because I really liked him in the first couple of seasons, but as it went on, they just kept doing it more and more, and then they had the asexual thing, which was just retarded. I didn't care for it at all. So eventually, like I said, Bojack the Feminist is when I stopped watching Season 5. Then my friend showed me it the rest of the way. Finally, we watched Season 6. Now, I will say Season 6 is considerably better than Season 5. Season 6 has a lot more Bojack focus, but it does still have annoying little woke things inserted into it. For instance, there's the part where they steal the kidney, and then, like, the cop doesn't care that Todd's doing it because he's white, but Todd's Mexican stepdad, he's like, I'm keeping my eye on you, this guy's not bothering you, is he? And it's like, fuck off. Like, then Todd's stepdad tells him, like, oh, well, you know, the one thing you have accomplished is you're white. And it's like, fuck off. Like, it could have been funny if I didn't think the director was thinking this is something that legitimately could happen. Because the show itself definitely has a lot of little woke stuff, so you definitely think this is someone who genuinely thinks that white privilege exists, which it just fucking doesn't. That really pissed me off. It was fine, it was one little joke, so it's like, whatever. It was a little annoying. There was also that stuff where Biscuits Braxby, or whatever the fuck her name, was interviewing Bojack, saying that he had power over all these women, and like the power dynamic and shit. It's like, fuck off, they still made their choices. Like, he treated them like shit and did bad things. But to try and act like they had no element of choice is just disingenuous, and that's what I hate about when people talk about power dynamics, because it's just fucking stupid. If that's the case, celebrities can't date anyone who's not as famous as they are, which is just lame to me, because, like, that's not how it works. And to try and pretend that people have this quote-unquote power because they're a celebrity, which, granted, they do when it comes to the law. In the law, celebrities get away with shit all the time. And that was some of the commentary that was kind of funny in Bojack. Like, for instance, there's a law made that allows rich people to murder people. That was kind of funny. Overall, the social commentary aspect of the show was lame. As far as the ending was really good. The episode, The View from Halfway Down, I really liked, because Bojack had kind of, like, drowned in a pool. He didn't actually die, but the episode leads you to believe that he did. And he's, like, having, like, a between life and death experience where he's seeing all the other people who have died in the series. And that was really cool, I really liked that. Really good episode, really well done. And then the episode following that was pretty good, too, where Bojack's past all catches up to him, which I thought was pretty cool. He goes to prison, and everyone kind of cuts him off, but he's still, like, living for himself. And Mr. Peanut Butter's living for himself, too. You know, Pickles left him. Overall, I do think the ending was good, but I didn't care about any of the characters, really, except for Bojack by the end of it. So I feel like the show went from mediocre in the first half of the first season to amazing from the second half of the first season all the way to season 3, to mediocre with season 4, kind of stupid with season 5, and then mediocre again with season 6. That's the way I felt about it. The ending was really high highs with season 6, but the rest of it was kind of like, okay, whatever, I don't care. Diane's writing a children's book, okay, sure, whatever, I don't care. Princess Carolyn's raising her baby, okay, whatever, I don't care. So I think for me, just losing interest in a lot of the characters made the show be held back a lot for me. I still ultimately am glad I finished it, and I do think it is overall a good show, but I do think there is a lot of little things that I don't care for about it that really kind of pissed me off, or were just bad, or just kind of lame. Overall, good show. I'd say if I had to rate the entire show as a whole, I'd give it like a 6.5. If I rated seasons 2 and 3, it'd probably be like an 8. And then the rest of it, it's kind of hard to determine. Season 1, I guess, would be like a 7, maybe. Season 4 and 5 were like a 5, maybe. And season 6 was like maybe a 5, maybe a 6. But there were definitely some really good episodes. For instance, in Season 5, they had the episode Free Churro, which was one of my favorite episodes. The entire episode is one big long monologue Bojack's giving about his dead mom. I thought that was a great episode, but the rest of Season 5 I didn't really care for. But anyway, that's all I really have to say about Bojack Horseman. I know this video's been a long time waiting. I'm glad to finally have it out. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one. Toodles.
Nagumo, wait. What about your parents?
Don't worry. They're at a funeral.